Welcome to T2T, and this is New York Giants Corner, baby. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of New York Giants Corner here at T2T Network. And I'm recording this episode Tuesday night, October 17th. And this is just a day after the Monday Night Football game, 2 days after the Sunday Night Football game, where the Giants unfortunately went down to lost to the Buffalo Bills. What was the final score? 14-9, I believe it was, if I recall correctly. And it sucked. It would have been so nice to get out of Buffalo with that upset victory. That was a game I actually predicted us to win before the season started. Looking at the schedule, I'm like, you know what? I have a feeling about this Buffalo game that we're going to go in and we're going to get the upset. And that was before the season started, before the whole mess that's been this 2023 season for our beloved New York Giants. Before it all started, before we saw how messy it was going to be, or that it's been so far, I definitely had higher aspirations for the season, and the season's not over. Call me crazy, but the season's not over. I feel like this team does have fight in it, and I think we saw that in this Buffalo game too. Not that we weren't necessarily seeing it earlier in the season. It's just that I do think the players are trying, and I just think it was an absolute mess. I want to focus on, we still, probably have, as much as I still think this team has fight in it and that things can get better. Right now I am going to, treat it kind of like as a lost season, but I don't like to be negative. I don't like to focus on the negative. That's the reality. But there's other realities out there too that are positive. And, and right now there's a positive trend that I'm seeing. I think you're mostly seeing as well. And I'm really, really looking forward to it for the rest of the season. And that is the defense. That is our defense under Wink Martindale, who I was critical of, along with every other coach on the Giants, since the beginning of the season. I was critical of Wink too. I didn't like seeing Kayvon Thibodeau drop back, like 75% drop back pass coverage for at least one of the games earlier in the season. I want to see our pass rushers go after the quarterback for the most part. I'm not saying he can never drop back, nothing like that at all. And of course, he's in Wink's defense. Wink's defenses throughout his history as a defensive coordinator. He is, Baltimore's been known for a long time for their amoeba defense, and that's pretty much what he employs with what he's employing here with the Giants. We're still accumulating more talent, so the defense will get better as time goes on. But I'm liking what I'm seeing because the results are looking better. We're finally getting some turnovers from the defense. We're finally getting some interceptions. We're getting fumbles. I remember people were very critical, highly critical of Xavier McKinney, who I've defended for the most part. I think everyone on this team had a very rough start to the season. Everyone looked lost. And I know I'm going off on a tangent. I will get back to Xavier McKinney in a second. The entire team looked lost. The offense, the defense, especially our quarterback, especially the quarterback. Everyone was looking lost, for the first 4 or 5 games, what have you, for the most part. But the defense has been getting better. I think the defense has actually been getting better and better ever since the second half of the Arizona game, when they let up what was it, 20 points against Arizona in the first half. Of course, our offense put up 0 points. But in the second half, they only let up 1 touchdown and a 2-point conversion, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think so. They only let up a touchdown in the second half of the Arizona game. Now, if you look at the scores of the games after that, such as like they didn't play a bad game against Seattle. But if you look at the other games, especially the 49ers and the Dolphins, I thought they actually held out pretty well until the wheels came off. And that's not surprising. You look at both the 49ers and the Dolphins, they put up like, over 30 points each. Not a surprise given the talent on those teams. And that this defense is still, it's still not great. I like the talent that it's been accumulating again, but it's still not great, but it was still finding its footing. Kind of like this entire team this year. The defense was finding its footing. And I actually felt like in the 49er game and the Dolphins game, the defense was actually holding up fairly well. It was fairly well. The offense needs to put up points too. It's go hand in hand. And but this past game against Buffalo, what is showing by the defense, man? And I really, really think they found their footing. It's unfortunate. Listen, we did a really tough schedule to start this season. Extremely tough, and no excuses. It is what it is, but it's still like the rest of the team, like the entire team. The defense is very young too. I mean, the Giants are the youngest team. They have the youngest roster on paper. I think the average age is like 25.4 years old. I think the closest one is like the closest other team is like 25.7 years. They are still the youngest team. That goes on both sides of the line, offense and defense. And so, you have some veterans on there on the defensive side of the ball. Adoree Jackson, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence has been around for like 5 years now. He's certainly not a rookie. He's a young vet. So he's a veteran though. And you got some others there too on the defensive side of the ball. But, you still have young guys too, especially in the secondary. And you had a key addition this year in Bobby Okereke. Came over from the Colts and it's taken him time, like he said, and understandably so, to get acclimated to the new defense and the new defensive style, with Wink Martindale. And that's to be expected. But man, ever since he's been showing up for when I say showing up, I mean living up to our expectations, really in the last few games, but especially the last 2 games, and especially the last game against Buffalo, the defense is looking so much better. And it's not a surprise because the middle linebacker in any defense is important. And it feels so good to say we have linebackers. We haven't been able to say that in so long. I mean, I think the last impactful linebacker we had Blake Martinez, and I loved Blake Martinez. That guy was excellent at playing the run before his injury, which led to him being jettisoned by the Giants. I guess that's the reason for it. But for a year and a half before his injury, 2 seasons, whatever it was, Blake Martinez was excellent at playing the run, and he was actually better in pass protection than I think most of us, including myself, thought before he came over from Green Bay. But Blake was awesome at stopping the run for us. Years before that, you had Michael Boley for maybe like 2-3 seasons on the Giants, and he helped the team win Super Bowl 46. And obviously before that, it was Antonio Pierce. But man, you look at the impact that Okereke is having in both pass defense as well as the rush defense. It has been noticeable. And if you hear some music in the background, I hope that doesn't bother you at all. I just decided to, I'm in StreamYard, and I just kind of realized that they actually have some background music here, and I'm playing a little background music called Feeding the Ducks. It's free. It's in StreamYard. I'm playing it. I don't think it's that bad. So I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Actually kind of like having it on. I always like having a little music on in the background. Even when I'm just working, work, helps me think. Helps me stay focused. But and if you see me looking down here all the time, it's just looking at my show notes that I hand wrote over here. So back to the linebackers, we haven't had, and I will get to McKinney in a second. We haven't had linebackers like a linebacker like Okereke in a long time. He is starting to show, he's really showing why we signed him. And the impact he's having is immense in both phases of the defense, pass defense and run defense. Blowing up plays behind the line of scrimmage. And the impact with Micah McFadden, the tandem, they looked fantastic in that game. And wow, not only do we not just have one legitimate linebacker, but it looks like we have two. And one of them, we're developing ourselves. When was the last time we've been able to say that? Even Blake Martinez was a free agent. Michael Boley was a free agent. Even God, what's his name? Who I just mentioned before, who helped us win? Antonio Pierce. He was a free agent from Washington back in the day. The last time we developed a linebacker, it was probably Jesse Armstead, because he even had Michael Barrow, who was our middle linebacker when we went to the Super Bowl in 2000, Super Bowl 35 against the Ravens that we lost. My gosh, we probably haven't developed an impactful linebacker since Jesse Armstead, off the top of my head. And he was better than just an impactful linebacker. I mean, that guy was a Pro Bowler. He was awesome outside linebacker. He wasn't a middle linebacker. I don't care. If we're developing out any linebackers, I'm impressed. Whether it's a middle linebacker, weak side, strong side, I don't care what it is. It looks like with McFadden, we're actually developing a homegrown linebacker, and drafted in the 5th round too, if I recall correctly. I think he was a 5th rounder last year. And I'll tell you, still haven't given up on Beavers. He's on the practice squad, I believe. Still haven't given up on Beavers. I would like to see Beavers one day up here. But man, Micah McFadden, is really coming along very well, playing alongside Bobby Okereke. It matters so much to have a veteran back there who knows what he's doing. And McFadden has been playing lights out. McFadden, like pretty much everyone else on the defense and everyone else on offense, was looking sloppy, not tackling well, just being maybe, not aggressive at times and then overly aggressive other times, and just looking like a young player. But, I'm not trying to pick on McFadden, but for the first few games, like everyone else on the defense, nothing looked right. Nothing looked right. But man, the defense looks like it's really taking shape, under Wink this year. And, hats off to Dex, who had a really good game. It's not necessarily going to show up in the numbers, but, Dex is, again, taking on double teams and at times triple teams. Leo had a pretty good game. He's not definitely the Leo from a few years ago who was getting like 11 sacks or 8 sacks, whatever it was that one year. But, Leo's been having his impact, playing the run well. Both he and Dex are playing the run well. Kayvon Thibodeau is playing better and better. He's not, he hasn't flashed as much as he did last year in his rookie season, but listen, I know people have been critical of Thibodeau. I am not even close to giving up on Thibodeau on being able to develop into a long-term impactful player. Not at all. I think there's a lot with this team and this defense where, they're trying to bring things along this year. And I think it's just, it just took a few games. And, but Dex and Leo are playing well. I think Thibodeau's playing well. But those linebackers, it feels so good to be able to say the New York Giants have linebackers. I think I saw on Twitter earlier today the PFF scores for Okereke and McFadden. I think there was something like 91 and 89 for this past game, respectfully. And that's great to see, but you can just see it, the eye test, it's like you don't even need to check any statistics or anything. The eye test tells you all. These two linebackers have been very, very impactful. And something else I saw on Twitter too earlier was that like all 3 interceptions that so far we have as a team have either been, one was by Okereke and the other 2 were caused by Okereke. Basically, tip balls, both of which maybe McFadden got both of them, but I know McFadden did get an interception in the Buffalo game off of a tip ball by Okereke. So it's so good to see those 2 playing so well, and to be able to say that the New York Giants have linebackers. Holy cow. And I don't think this is a fluke. I think it's just these guys finding their footing, and especially Okereke finding his footing, which is in turn, helping McFadden finding his footing. McFadden playing next to the veteran. He's Okereke is a young veteran, but he's a veteran. Just like Dexter. Dexter's a young veteran, but he's a veteran. So I'm really excited about those two. Deonte Banks, man, looking really good for a rookie cornerback. Looking really, really good. All the statistics are bearing that out as well. The eye test bearing out as well. He's not getting interceptions, but he wasn't known as that in college either. So either I think you're that type of cornerback or you're not. Like Emmanuel Forbes, drafted by Washington, actually ahead of Deonte Banks, came out of college. This dude was an INT machine. And I think I think Forbes has had a shaky start to his rookie campaign. I actually like Emmanuel Forbes. I think he's going to be very good sometime this season or down the road. Cornerback is a very, very tough position, difficult position when transitioning from college to the NFL. So I actually still like Forbes. But Deonte Banks is playing really well. Had a great game against Diggs yesterday. He's been up against elite talent to start his NFL career this season. Banks, and he's had to play zone and man coverage, and he's coming along nicely. So I'll tell you, man, I was ready to give Banks. I was giving him a lot of leeway coming into the season because rookie cornerbacks can often, I think more often than not, look kind of shitty, to be honest with you, their rookie years. It's a very tough transition. And he was starting from day one. So that's really, really tough. So I was going to give Banks a lot of leeway his rookie year. But right now he's looking very good. I will say this, though. That I think it would be a big mistake for the Giants to trade Adoree Jackson at the deadline. I know, most of us, not myself, but most of us, and probably even Joe Shane are interested in giving, selling off what they can by the trade deadline. I'd keep Adoree Jackson though, because you really want a veteran back there in the secondary. And Adoree Jackson is good. Adoree Jackson had a tough start to the season, but Adoree Jackson was playing slot for the first few games. And he'd never played slot before. He was playing slot out of necessity. So they had the two rookie corners, playing the outside the boundary, and Banks and Trey Hawkins, who they took in the 6th round. And I still think Trey Hawkins could wind up being a steal. I do. But they played Jackson in the slot out of necessity because the plan was to have Flott take that over, but he didn't play well in the preseason, so they weren't going to have him do that. The fact is that playing slot corner is really important these days because, like edge rushers, on the other side of the ball, top end wide receivers get moved all over the place right now. Like, they don't just play on the outside. They get moved to the slot quite a bit. And a lot of these guys do most of their damage in the slot. So they were not going to, wink, understandably so. I didn't necessarily agree with it, but I completely understood. Was not just going to leave Cordell Flott, an untested second-year player, going up against the likes of like CeeDee Lamb and others in the slot. He wasn't going to do that, so he decided to go with Trey Hawkins in the outside and Adoree Jackson in the slot. And Adoree, he didn't play great, but like I said, he's not a slot corner. He's never played slot before, but I'm glad he's back on the outside. And Flott, I think Flott actually played fine. In the slot this game. I think he may have played slot against Miami as well. I could be wrong about that, but I never gave up on Flott. I really liked what he flashed last year. And Flott's a young player. I don't know how many years he started at LSU, but he only had one very good year at LSU, and it was his final year coming into the draft in the 2022 draft, and where he balled out. And Flott was the most improved player in all of college football. That's what he was voted on by beat writers, I believe. He was the most, or it was either beat writers or coaches from around college football was voted as the most, Cordell Flott was voted as the most improved player in all of college football leading up to when he was drafted by the Giants. And I do like what Flott has. He's got stuff to clean up, but there's a lot of good stuff to work with. He's got good coverage skills. He really does. Things he's got to clean up, but I like where Flott's going, and I hope he winds up sticking at slot and let this dude develop, because I feel like this front office and the coaching staff of the front office really wanted to. They're going to go with their young guys. It's clear they're going to go with the young guys, and they were going to take their lumps. I think they took a lot more lumps than they were anticipating. But they were going to go with youth in both the secondary, wherever they really could. The guys they've been drafting for the past 2 years, the past 2 draft classes, both the secondary and the offensive line. Now it's come back to bite them quite a bit on the offensive line. I still actually, this will be something for another video, how they approach the offensive line. Even in hindsight, I don't necessarily disagree with what the front office and Brian Dable decided to do to approach the offensive line this year. I know I'm probably I'm probably the only person out there saying that it didn't work out. I would have done some things differently, but I'm going off on a tangent. Let me save the offensive line for another video. And I do want to make like another 1 or 2 more videos this week, short ones one on Daniel Jones and the quarterback situation, as well as the offensive line maybe. But anyway, let me stick to defense. Xavier McKinney, who I first brought up like 10 minutes ago, kept saying I was going to get back to. Here's someone else whose name I've seen or heard being mentioned as possible trade bait at the trade deadline. Assuming that they're not going to look to re-sign him. I think that's a mistake. I think McKinney's a very talented safety, and I don't want to see this team shed talent. Yeah, he had it difficult this year, but to start off this year, but so did every other freaking defensive player, except for maybe Dexter. Every defensive player looked like crap for the first few games. They really did. But I think everyone's finding their footing, and Xavier McKinney just had a very, very good game. People were talking about, they were kind of like, crapping all over Xavier McKinney, especially I think in the Arizona game where, he was apparently getting run over. I want to point out that these times, like there were like 3 times where McKinney got quote unquote run over. All 3 times he was basically trying to strip the ball. I think he was alone. He was like the last man standing, in defense of the player he was up against. And instead of taking him down, which he probably should have just done that, he was trying to strip the ball. He wasn't getting run over. And to me, that was something, I don't even know if that was just his own decision he was making, or if he was told by the coaches, by Wink, go and strip the ball when you have the chance. And I think that's just what he was trying to do. But I think McKinney's a very good safety. I'm glad he had a really good bounce back game with Buffalo. I think this defense is going to look better and better as the season goes along. And not just because we've got the supposedly easy part of the schedule coming up. Washington and whoever else is out there, the Raiders, I don't remember, but it is an easier, I shouldn't say supposedly, it is an easier part of the schedule. But I think the defense, it was a rough start to the season in terms of the teams we had to play. The defense, I think has been getting better and better since the second half of the Arizona game, and it really showed itself against Buffalo. Now, I think Buffalo is not as great as, as their kind of project, as they appear anyway. They're one of the best teams in the NFL, don't get me wrong. But Buffalo is a team that, I think their defense has developed into being a really good defense. And obviously Josh Allen, listen, besides Patrick Mahomes, who else would you take over Josh Allen? So Josh Allen is phenomenal. And you got Stephon Diggs, but those other wide receivers, none of them are scary. The running game is nothing to write home about either. So that team has its flaws, but Giants went in and basically the defense basically shut them down. They shut down Buffalo, who just put up 40 points against Miami. What was it, like 2 weeks before? So Buffalo is fully capable of putting up points. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think they're as great as a lot of people think. It's really Josh Allen. It's the Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs show on the offense, and that's pretty much it. But they just put up 40 points against Miami, just like 2 weeks ago. And the Giants in Buffalo just put up, held them to 14 points. That was really impressive. But the key thing is you've got these key components who are playing well. Bobby Okereke, probably our biggest free agent signing this year, this past offseason. Bobby Okereke showing up like a real stud. Deonte Banks, rookie cornerback, playing really, really well. Micah McFadden, second-year linebacker, drafted in the 5th round last year. Homegrown. I can't believe I'm saying it. Micah McFadden looking like another stud. Like Micah McFadden is turning into this tackle for loss machine. He's turning into a real disruptor behind the line of scrimmage. He's been playing fast, just like Okereke now recently. Okereke was playing hesitant, and he even admitted himself he's just unsure the first few games because he was new to the defense. Okereke is playing fast and loose now and decisively, and so is McFadden. McFadden is cleaned up a lot of his tackling issues he had the first few games. He was missing a lot of tackles, as was much of the Giants defense the first few games. So it's not just McFadden, but man, I hope that storyline really continues, and I have no reason to believe that it's not going to. But again, Adoree Jackson, real quick, I think it's a mistake not to have. First of all, he's a quality player, and it's at one of the most key positions in all of football. Adoree Jackson. Second of all, he is I don't know if he's officially a captain on the team, but I believe he is. But he sure plays like one. He's a quality guy. I think he's got more time, and I would actually look to extend Adoree Jackson beyond this year, because you always want to have, at least one quality veteran there in the secondary at cornerback, not just safety, but more importantly at cornerback. You always want to have that. I'm very afraid that they're not going to retain Adoree Jackson, and next year we're just going to have, just young cornerbacks only, and that could wind up being really, really bad. If things start going shaky, you need a veteran to calm things down. So I'm worried about that. I'm worried they're going to get rid of Adoree Jackson. And yeah, the line of thinking could be, well, yeah, we'll go with we'll get another veteran next year, and maybe less expensive, and show me who that's going to be. I want to know who that's going to be, because Adoree's been an excellent cornerback for this team ever since we signed him as a free agent just a few years ago. He's lived up to the contract that he got when he signed with the Giants just a few years ago. Adoree Jackson's lived up to it, and not many players do. Jackson has. And I think they'd be making a mistake. It's short-sighted to move on from him after this year. I would look to extend him for at least a year. I'm not saying you have to extend him for 3 years or maybe even 2 years, but I would look to extend him at least one more year. Yeah, you want that veteran corner over there. I think I covered everything I wanted to on the defense. Listen, I think all these players are coming along nicely. I really do. Flott, McFadden, Banks. I haven't given up on Trey Hawkins for down the road, maybe next year, or maybe we'll see more of him this year. But I like what I'm seeing. Again, McKinney as well. Dex, even Thibodeau. Thibodeau's got a lot of heat because we wanted to be the sack monster, and maybe I think he can develop into that. He's still we're still in the beginning of the first half of the second season. And again, I think this defense is just only now finding its footing. So there's a lot of good things to look forward to, man. But it's been a relatively healthy defense too, as opposed to the offensive side of the ball. So that always helps. And with the continuity and letting you got your key studs out there like Dex and Leo and Thibodeau and Okereke, and this helps the younger players develop. It helps. It's like having a right tackle. You have a right tackle, for just as an example, or a left tackle, whatever. We'll go with right tackle example. You have a right tackle, a really good quality veteran left guard, a right guard who knows what he's doing, playing right next to that young right tackle can help him out a lot. So it's the same thing on the defensive side of the ball, where you got these healthy veterans who know what they're doing, they're playing well. It helps the young guys play well too. So I'm really, really excited, man. I'm really excited now, especially now that we're heading to the easier part of the schedule. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this defense is gonna develop into being, and hopefully the offense starts putting up points too. Because listen, man, the defense can't do it all. The offense needs to show up. It really needs to show up and put up points. But that's for another video. Anyway, guys, that's it. I just wanted to talk about the defense. Really excited about what I've been seeing. Knock on wood. Young players, young key players are balling out. Everyone seems to be playing well, and that's a great thing to see. It's a great thing to see at least one side of the ball so far starting to live up to expectations. And I think they're just going to get better as the season goes along. So I'm really looking forward to it. Anyway, guys, this is Joe. The show is New York Giants Corner. The network is T2T. Please subscribe. Wednesday mornings, 8 o'clock is when these Giants episodes release. Please give a thumbs up. Comments, please put a comment in there, and I will respond. And please give us a follow here at Toilets to Titles. So we call ourselves T2T Network. The full name is Toilets to Titles, and that's where you'll find us on Twitter as well. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. And anyway, we've got a game coming up against Washington. Looking forward to. Let's kick their ass. Let's get a win. Let's get the second win of the season. And I like beating Washington. Nothing against Washington. I feel bad for you guys because, not to be cruel, but you've been irrelevant for decades. So, but man, this team needs another one big time. And that's it. So here's my really cool outro video. And I'll catch you soon, guys. Take care.